Today, I want to iron out any confusion that you might have about how you can use Creative Fabrica. Some people are saying you should never use Creative Fabrica products as is, and others say that you should just upload the entire interior without any changes whatsoever. So it is confusing. Now, if we go on to here and we look at KDP interiors, we're going to get a bit more information about them. So here we have several different options that you might be able to use. So we've got 143,000 results of things that say that you can upload it straight away onto KDP. Now, if we look on this one, for example, it's saying ready to print or upload to KDP. And we want to know, is that actually true? Now, if we look on here, you'll see that it says commercial usage allowed. But what does that actually mean? Now, it's important to understand that Creative Fabrica has two different license types. So you've got the commercial usage allowed one, and you have, if we look on a different one, commercial and full pod usage allowed. Now, if we click on the licensing information, it tells us a bit more detail. Most people do have subscriptions, so we're going to just look at the subscription license. Now, when you look on this page that it's directed you to, this page will show you both commercial and commercial with full pod licenses. Please don't assume when you click on that it will take you to the license guidance for the product that you've actually clicked on. It doesn't. This is a generic one that is for everything. So in the top of this page here, we've got some quick links, and this just basically will guide you down the page. So if we look first here at license summary, it's so generic, and if you read it at all, it basically tells you nothing. Then we have physical end products and digital products a bit further down. Now, you might think that printing with Amazon KDP classes as a physical product because a book is a physical product, and it's a reasonable assumption. But unfortunately, and I have checked this with the powers that be at Creative Fabrica, a book published on Amazon KDP counts as a pod, which means print on demand. It's basically because the book is not actually printed until somebody orders it. So unfortunately, Creative Fabrica do class self-published books as pods. So for this reason, we have to completely ignore physical end products. They're not physical end products. So let's go down here a bit further to the pod section, the print on demand usage section. We have here two different options. We've got the basic print on demand usage and the full print on demand usage. Now, if you were to look through all the products on Creative Fabrica, I can't find any that say that it has a basic pod usage license. It's either commercial license or commercial with full pod usage license. Those are your two options that come up on Creative Fabrica. So I've checked this, and when it says commercial usage is allowed, it's basically the same as this basic print on demand usage. Full print on demand usage is exactly what it says on the tin. Now, the difference between these two is that when you have a full print on demand license, as is the case in this template here, when you have the full print on demand usage, you can use this as it is. So that means that I can upload this document as it is. You don't need to make any changes whatsoever, but we will talk about perhaps why I wouldn't do that in a moment. And that also means that this previous one that we had a look at, let's have a little look, is not the case. So it's saying it's ready to print or upload to KDP, but unfortunately it doesn't have that full pod license. So that means technically it's not ready to be published and uploaded to KDP. Now, when it has just a basic commercial license like that, or commercial usage is allowed, that counts as a basic pod. So let's see what we have to do with that. So it says here that you need to create graphics that are vastly different from the original. This means they've got unique, distinctive elements that are added by you. So the example here is below. So this is the original one. And then you're not allowed to just put that directly into a print on demand product. You have to change it. So the way that they've changed it here is they've changed the colouring and they've added this fluffy background here. So that means it is okay to change that image. So that means with this particular monthly planner, it's fine to change it somehow. So that would be like changing the fonts, for example, maybe changing the color scheme, something like that, so that it's significantly different to the original. If you are finding this video useful, I do go into quite a lot of useful information on my channel about self-publishing. So I'd really recommend that you hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell, and that way you will know every time that I make a new video. So with that information, we can assume that it is safe to go ahead and use anything that has a full pod usage allowance and to use that as it is. The reason that you shouldn't do that is because technically you could end up with exactly the same book as somebody else. Imagine if there was 15 other people that took this interior and put a cover on it and sold that book. That would mean that someone that say bought 2 books in the same sort of niche would end up with exactly the same book, and Amazon will get complaints, customers get cross, and then basically Amazon doesn't tolerate any of it, so it would class that as copyright infringement. 2 people, 2 different editors having the same book, so that means they'd probably ban you. So that's the reason that I wouldn't use Creative Fabrica as it is. But there's nothing wrong with taking elements directly from, say, this template and slotting it in with other ones that are similar. So what I mean by that is you could take some of the colouring pages from here, and then you could go onto this designer's website and you could take some of his other colouring pages and you could amalgamate them all into one book. That would be completely fine, because no one's going to have exactly the same interior as you. They might have 1 or 2 of the same elements as you, but they won't have exactly the same interior. Now, the reason I'd say go with the same designer is because then you keep the book looking consistent. It would be odd to have a book with some pages like this in it, which are really detailed, and then to mix that in with a book, say, that looks a bit like this. The style is completely different, so people will know that looks a bit strange. So that's why I would always just go with the same designer each time. So doing that when you've got full pod usage allowed is perfectly fine and completely legit and safe to do. Okay, now this information might be quite annoying if you found a design that you really love and then discover it only has a commercial license. So looking at this one, it does only have commercial usage allowed. Now, the reason I question this is because Creative Fabrica has a new tool where you can create your own designs. So if I was to go onto this, and people have typed in things that they want to, say, illustrate. So if I wanted a book illustration, a children's book illustration about a naughty fairy, it will create a completely unique design. This is great for if you can't find the sort of design that you want on Creative Fabrica, but you want to find something. So you could go onto this Spark and create a illustration that's completely unique. So say you went on to publish this, and then you open that document, you found the picture, but oh no, it says commercial usage allowed. It doesn't say pod usage allowed. For this reason, I decided that I would check with Creative Fabrica and just to double check that I was interpreting the license rules right. And they came back to me and said, yes, they do consider that KDP is indeed considered print-on-demand publishing platform. So that's just confirmed what I just told you. If a product comes with a full pod license, you can use the product as is in your KDP book. But they have given a little bit more allowance for KDP products to be able to use those basic pod licenses. So they're saying when it's a high content book, such as a novel or non-fiction book, the vast majority of the content has been contributed by the author, so basic pod crafts and graphics can be used in this type of book without alteration. So this is fantastic news, because it means that this one that does say commercial usage allowed, if I want to use that as an illustration for a book that I've written, I am perfectly within my rights to do that, because I have this in writing from Creative Fabrica. It's a novel or a fiction book, and it's perfectly okay. This also applies to lower content books. So if it's saying you might have a planner You might have some pre-written text, which the end user later can use to fill in their day. In these books, again, basic print-on-demand crafts and graphics can be used in this type of book without alteration. So this is great. So this is even saying that those books that are planners that just have commercial license can be used. The only time that you can't use any of the products for self-publishing is when you're printing a no content book. So that's like a blank notebook. This book type contains no original work by the author. Basic pod crafts and graphics cannot be used in this type of book without alteration. So that is basically saying that for self-publishing your own books using Creative Fabrica, you can pretty much use anything you want to that is on Creative Fabrica. So if you wanted to take those inserts that we discussed earlier, so if you wanted to take these, that would be counted as a low content book. You're creating most of it yourself. That is okay to do, even though it doesn't have that full pod usage. I would, of course, always recommend, though, using a little bit of your own designs, techniques, if you can. It's always nice to make something unique and make it look professional, or using something to brand your product. If you take a look at one of my other videos about making a colouring book, I show you a really good way about how you can make colouring books with fun quotes and other things, just to make it more different and a little bit unique. And I'll leave the link to that in the description. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been nice talking to you again. Take care and see you next time.